This is our September edition of Too Close to Home, in which we feature the hometowns of some of our patrons and explore some of the strange goings-on in and around their neighbourhoods. If you wish for us to dig up ghost stories, paranormal activity, haunted places, mysteries and true crime events within your area, please consider becoming a patron at our Too Close to Home tier. You can check it out by clicking the link in the description or in the comment section below. And now, as always, hit those lights, sit back and enjoy. Memphis, Tennessee. Saloma Simmons. Memphis, Tennessee is the home of the blues and rock and roll, and is the location of Elvis Presley's famous Graceland estate. It is also known for its rich history, especially its connection to the civil rights movement, and is the place where activist Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in April 1968. It's also the home of our patron, Saloma, so this one is for you, Saloma. The Missing Millionaire. 28-year-old John Cheek was a smart, driven, happy young man who, after attending university, moved back to his hometown of Memphis, where he purchased a house and worked as the chief financial officer for a real estate company in East Memphis. Life was good for John, and he was well on his way to becoming one of Memphis's most successful businessmen. Just before he disappeared, he was working on the biggest deal of his life. The company he worked for was about to go national, a deal that would have made John a millionaire. In the days before he disappeared, John was tying up loose ends for the deal in Milwaukee, Denver and Portland. When he returned to Memphis, his colleagues noticed he was sleep deprived and obsessed with the deal going through. On December 1st, 1983, John spent that evening with accountants, also working on the deal, and at around 11 PM, one of the accountants dropped him off at his car, which was parked at the Crescent Center in Memphis. When John didn't show up for work the next day, it was very out of character. His colleagues were concerned, and when he couldn't be contacted, his parents reported him missing. On December 3rd, John's car was spotted by a trucker on the old Delaware Street exit ramp. It was locked, with no evidence of a struggle or damage from an accident. A search of John's home revealed nothing unusual apart from an open garage door. No money was missing, and his bank accounts hadn't been touched, and nothing untoward was uncovered about his work or personal life. It was a complete mystery as to where John had gone. His friends and family quickly ruled out suicide, however murder and kidnapping were considered, although there was no evidence of either. A huge appeal was launched, and in March 1994, John's case appeared on the TV show Unsolved Mysteries. A breakthrough came when Memphis police received a call from trucker Ron Jackson, who thought he'd spotted John at White's truck stop in Raphine, Virginia. Jackson described a clean-cut, shaven man who had a change of clothes wrapped in a belt. Jackson bought the man breakfast, and during the meal, Jackson claims the man resembling Cheek told him he'd been catching rides with truckers, stayed in a homeless shelter in Little Rock, and was making his way to Richmond, Virginia. A traveling insurance man also called, reporting a man fitting Cheek's description at a Texaco station in Virginia. The store owner remembered the man as well. However, the leads came to nothing, although John's family are certain that the man was John. They believe John could be suffering from stress-induced amnesia due to a mental breakdown. It's not unusual for people under excessive amounts of stress to fall into what psychologists refer as a fugue state. This disorder causes the individual to lose their identity but remain communicative and functional. The condition can last for several weeks to several years. Friends and family held out in hope that John would one day return. 37 years later, they are still waiting. To this day, no one knows what happened to John. Friends and family doubt suicide, and no evidence points to foul play. In August 2000, Cheek was legally declared dead, even though his fate remains a mystery. John's company did go national as planned in early 1994 as Mid-America Apartment Communities Incorporation. The company trades on the stock market, and as of March 2017, has a market capitalization of over $11.5 billion. If John was still around today, he would almost certainly be a very wealthy man. it would be nice to think he is still alive and living happily somewhere with a new life. The Orpheum Theatre. One of Memphis's most well-known ghosts is Mary, the apparition of a 12-year-old girl who haunts the Orpheum Theatre. Stories vary about how Mary's spirit came to stay at the Orpheum, but most suggest she was injured in an accident, either after being hit by a car or a trolley in the 1920s. Her broken body was carried into the theatre where she died. Ever since, the theatre has been plagued by a variety of strange and unexplained incidents, and many believe the ghost of Mary is responsible. Witnesses have described seeing a little girl with braided brown hair and a white dress who was quite shy but very mischievous. She is mostly frequently spotted in her favourite seat, C5. Performers at the theatre see her the most and blame her for a variety of pranks, including flickering lights, tools emptied into commodes, doors swinging open and being slammed loudly. Even the late great Yul Brynner was apparently spooked by the ghost while rehearsing for The King and I in 1982. Those who have witnessed Mary are often disturbed by her blank stare and fragile appearance, although they point out Mary has never been known to disrupt an actual performance. Over the years, countless paranormal researchers have claimed to have found proof that Mary does haunt the theatre, and have made contact with her through seances and Ouija boards. And some dismiss the accident theory and believe the little girl died in 1921 in some sort of falling accident in the downtown area, which had nothing to do with the theatre, and her soul later wandered there after her death. It's also claimed that as many as 6 other spirits inhabit the Orpheum, including a male, known to some as David, who was waiting to escort Mary to the other side, but since she refuses to leave the theatre, he cannot leave either, and is therefore spending eternity in the theatre with her. Another spirit is Eleanor, an unhappy ghost who haunts the foyer of the balcony. None of the spirits there are believed to be malevolent. Honolulu, Oahu. Honolulu is a city on the island of Oahu and is the capital and largest city of the US state of Hawaii. Honolulu is the main getaway to Hawaii and a major portal into the United States. The city gained historical recognition following the attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan on December 7, 1941. It is also a very desirable place to live and is ranked as one of the safest cities in the US, and our patron, Kikilani, which we hope we're pronouncing correctly, is lucky enough to live there. So, Kikilani, here we look at a couple of ghosts that are lurking around your hometown. The Green Lady of Wahiawa Botanical Garden. The Wahiawa Botanical Garden is located in central Oahu in Hawaii. The garden is 27 acres of stunning native plants that include Hawaiian ferns and over 60 types of trees. Visitors can also enjoy a variety of hiking trails that run from the grounds. However, nearby, something altogether more sinister lurks: the Green Lady of Wahiawa. Allegedly, the monstrous woman inhabits a nearby ravine and makes regular appearances around dusk. She is described as a ghost with green-tinted scaly skin, long black hair, and clothing that is covered in moss and seaweed. Even if you can't see her, you are aware of her presence due to the pungent stench of the decaying plant matter that covers her. The legend is that the woman and her children used to be regular visitors to the gardens, when one day, while taking a shortcut through the nearby ravine that she now inhabits, the woman became separated from one of her children. Unable to find her child, she eventually disappeared herself, and it's believed she died of a broken heart. Since then, the Green Lady has been spotted wandering the area, still looking for her lost child. And it's said any children she finds playing near the ravine, she snatches, in an attempt to replace her lost child. She has also been seen at the nearby elementary school. The legend of the Green Lady has endured for years, and within the garden, it is said that if you cross a certain bridge alone, you may never return. The Queen Emma Summer Palace. The Queen Emma Summer Palace is located just outside of downtown Honolulu, It's unusual in that the frame of the home was built in Boston in 1848 and shipped to Hawaii via Cape Horn, where it was assembled on the site it stands on today. A couple of years after its completion, the home was purchased by John Young II, and in 1857 he gave it to his niece, Queen Emma, and it was her who in 1869 added a large room called the Edinburgh Room to the rear of the structure, in preparation for the visit of the Duke of Edinburgh. The palace served as a retreat for Queen Emma, her husband, and their son, Prince Albert Edward. However, Queen Emma's life was fraught with controversy and tragedy after she became engaged to Alexander Liholiho, who would become King Kamehameha IV. Her white blood led some to say she was unfit to rule as Hawaii's queen. However, despite this, the two married and she became a popular queen. In 1858, she gave birth to a son and heir, Prince Albert Edward Kamehameha. However, sadly the child died of meningitis aged 4. Emma blamed the governess and other members of Hawaii's royal family for contributing to his death and never forgave them. Sadly, just a year later, her husband also died and Emma found herself alone. Her brother-in-law took over the throne, followed by a family cousin, William Charles Lumalilo. But when William died without naming a successor, Emma put herself forward to be queen. But when she lost her bid to King Kalakaua, it was the final straw, and Emma retreated into solitude, a very bitter woman. Emma died at the age of 49 after a series of small strokes, and her funeral was one of the most well attended of any Hawaiian former monarch, and she was laid to rest in the royal mausoleum between her son and husband. The estate she lived in during the later years of her life was destroyed to build coastal artillery batteries for the US. So the Summer Palace remains one of her few private residences, and it's said the ghost of Queen Emma still roams the halls of the summer house, where she enjoyed a few brief years of happiness with her husband and son. Her ghost is mostly seen during the summer months, though her footsteps are often heard throughout the year. Queen Emma is not the only ghost who haunts the house. The spirit of a dog that belonged to her young son is also seen roaming the grounds, as if still waiting for his young master to return to him. Watertown, Wisconsin. Watertown is located halfway between Milwaukee and Madison in the state of Wisconsin. Amongst its claims to fame is that it is the home of the very first ever kindergarten class in the United States. And on a slightly darker note, it's very close to the killing fields of infamous serial killers Jeffrey Dahmer and Ed Gein. Watertown is also the hometown of Stephanie. So sit back, Stephanie, and enjoy a couple of things we found about your neighborhood. The Sweetheart Murders. On August 9th, 1980, Timothy Hack and his girlfriend Kelly Drew, both 19, went to a wedding reception at Concord House in the town of Sullivan, Wisconsin. The couple only planned to stay a short time and were going to meet up with friends later at a nearby carnival. But they never made it to the carnival and never made it home. The next day, the couple were reported missing. Timothy's car was found in the Concord House parking lot, locked with his wallet still inside. A massive search was launched, one of the biggest in Wisconsin history, and a few days later, some disturbing clues were found on the side of a road. Drew's cut pants, a rope, a strange piece of yellow tubing, and bits of torn clothing. 2 months later, squirrel hunters stumbled upon Drew's naked body in some woods bordering a cornfield. Timothy's body was found nearby. A forensic exam concluded that Drew had likely been sexually assaulted and strangled, and Timothy had been stabbed in the chest and back. Over the years, many leads and theories were followed up that led nowhere. 10 years went by, then 20, but no new leads emerged, and the case looked destined to be unsolved. However, investigators were determined to solve the crime that had rocked the community, and in 2007, evidence was resubmitted to the state crime lab. And for the first time, the lab was able to isolate DNA from an unknown donor. The DNA lead generated publicity, and people started making calls. One of those calls was allegedly from the daughter of Edward Wayne Edwards. Back in 1980, he was the handyman at the Concord house, and around the time the couple went missing, he had a bloody nose, but after being interviewed by police, he insisted he'd gotten the injury while deer hunting. Investigators believed him, and he was never a suspect. However, now armed with the DNA evidence, they tracked him down to Louisville. By now, he was a 76 obese old man, relying on oxygen to breathe. But after agreeing to give a DNA sample, it was found to be a match. After 29 years, the killer of Timothy Hack and Kelly Drew had been caught. It later emerged that Edwards was a career criminal, and at one point was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. And more significantly, 20 years before the murders, Edwards had been a suspect in an eerily similar case in Portland, Oregon, when Larry Payton and Beverly Allen, both 19, were murdered in similar circumstances. Edwards had even written a book during a stint in jail in 1972, an autobiography titled Metamorphosis of a Criminal, which is still available to buy on Amazon. Edwards later confessed to several other murders and was finally convicted of 5 murders. Like many serial killers, Edwards also claimed he was responsible for several other high-profile cases, including the Zodiac killings. In 2011, Edwards, at his request, was sentenced to death by lethal injection, but ultimately he avoided the death sentence when he died of natural causes at the Corrections Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio, on April 7, 2011. It is sad that the families and friends of his victims had to wait so long for justice, and hopefully many more long, unsolved crimes can be solved using genetic profiles, finally bringing to justice a lot of tired older men just like Ed Edwards, who thought they'd gotten away with it. The Bloody Bride Bridge. Highway 66 runs east-west in central Wisconsin, from Rossholt to Stevens Point, but for some the journey along this stretch of road isn't always straightforward. When you reach the bridge at Stevens Point, known to locals as the Bloody Bride Bridge, you could be joined by an unwanted passenger. According to legend, a bride-to-be was killed in a car accident near the bridge on her wedding night, and since then, she along with her ghostly groom have haunted the area, and if you park up on the bridge at midnight and look in your rear-view mirrors, you might see the bloody bride sat in the back seat of your car. Visitors to the bridge have reported not only apparitions, but also strange fogs and rock formations. There are even stories of a police officer who hit the phantom bride with his car, only to have her reappear later sat on his back seat. There have also been numerous reports of a bloody woman dressed in a wedding dress, appearing in the middle of the road leading to the bridge. Although it's worth pointing out, no record has ever been found that shows a woman died there, or that a police officer encountered the spirit. However, that doesn't stop people who have witnessed the phenomenon believing that it's real. Santa Maria, California. Santa Maria is a city near the central coast of California in northern Santa Barbara County. It is a place known for its wineries and Santa Maria-style barbecue, a place that also happens to be the hometown of our Patreon, Rolando Lopez. So sit back, Rolando, as this one is for you. The Santa Maria Inn. Built in 1917, the historic Santa Maria Inn is located in the city of Santa Maria. The inn was originally a popular rest point for those driving between the two towns. Over the years, many famous stars of yesteryear have stayed at the inn, including Douglas Fairbanks, Charlie Chaplin, Rudolph Valentino, as well as President Herbert Hoover, Cecil B. DeMille, and Joan Crawford. The inn, that started with just 24 rooms, but now has 164, and many of the rooms in which the rich and famous stayed in are now marked with a star on their door, displaying who had previously slept there. However, it's Rudolph Valentino that allegedly still lingers at the inn years after his death. He apparently likes to knock on room 221, his favourite room at the hotel, and has even been seen reclining on the bed. There are also rumours of the ghost of a sea captain who was murdered by his mistress long ago. He is supposedly attached to room 210. In addition to the sea captain and Valentino's antics, the hotel also has a piano that plays by itself. Mysterious footprints, unexplained perfume smells, spinning clock hands opening and closing doors, music coming out of disconnected speakers, and even an elevator starting up and going to a certain floor at the same time of the day. Rooms have also suddenly turned icy cold, and one report states that once a balloon followed a housekeeper around the building, even following her as she walked down the stairs. The ghostly activity is not just inside the hotel, it has also been experienced in the gardens and the cellar. Richard Sennett, along with his psychic wife Deborah, conducted a seance at the inn and contacted a young cocaine addict woman with the nickname of Peppy, who was a guest at the inn. No one is sure who this mysterious woman is, although some speculate she was a young starlet at the time who had succumbed to a life of drugs and debauchery. Santa Maria High School Auditorium. On the corner of Broadway and Marison Avenue in the town of Santa Maria is the Ethel Pope Auditorium, which is part of the Santa Maria High School. The auditorium is said to be haunted by the ghost of a former student. In the early 1920s, a senior at the high school named Jeanette was very much into drama, and although she mostly got smaller roles, she kept plugging away until she finally landed the part of Juliet in Shakespeare Romeo and Juliet. Jeanette practiced endlessly, rehearsing her lines to perfection. She even designed and made her own costumes. When opening night came, Jeanette excitedly rode her bike to the auditorium. However, somehow she ended up arriving late and was only just in time for her opening scene. Despite this, her performance was perfect, and she acted every line and every scene exactly how it was supposed to be. At the end, Jeanette received much praise and a standing ovation. Although strangely after the show, she left almost immediately, disappearing before her co-stars could heap more adulation upon her. The next day, Jeanette's mother called the drama teacher at the school, and in between weeping, apologized that Jeanette never made it to the show the night before. She explained that Jeanette had been hit by a car on her way there, and had been thrown from her bicycle by a passing car and died at the scene. The teacher was of course mystified, for she and hundreds of people in the audience had witnessed Juliet giving the performance of her life, after she had been declared dead as a result of the accident. There is another dark version of Jeanette's death. Instead of getting the part of Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, Jeanette was once again relegated to a bit part. Having tried so hard, she was despondent and consumed with despair. She went to the auditorium the night of the show, but not with plans to perform, but instead she climbed up to the catwalks over the stage before the show began, and there she fashioned a noose. Just as the curtains began to open, she slipped the rope over her head and jumped. So instead of the audience being welcomed with the opening line, two households both alike in dignity, they were greeted by the hanging body of Jeanette. Whichever version is correct, it is said that for decades, Jeanette has haunted the auditorium. She has been seen by students and teachers alike, and although many of them refer to her as Ethel, or Ethel Pope due to the name of the auditorium, it's widely believed it is the ghost of Jeanette that has been witnessed up in the balcony watching rehearsals, moving along the catwalks, hanging out in the dressing rooms, and even floating across the stage. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit is the largest and most populated city in the US state of Michigan, and the largest US city on the United States-Canada border. Detroit is a vibrant, diverse city, best known as the center of the US automobile industry, and the big three auto manufacturers, General Motors, Ford, and Fiat Chrysler, are all headquartered in Metro Detroit. It has also experienced some darker moments over the years, and with a high concentration of abandoned buildings, it's not surprising that many people who live or visit Detroit City have encountered paranormal activity, and one of our much appreciated patrons, Patty Ann, is possibly amongst them. Here we'll look at the historic Fort Wayne that is located in Detroit and is reputed to be the most haunted building in the city. Fort Wayne was built in the 1840s to defend an invasion by Canada. The invasion never happened, but nevertheless the fort served the military for a long time. Many of the buildings have been abandoned by the army and left to decay, which adds to the eeriness of the place. Inside is a tunnel that leads to a gun and cannon location, and that is where the most paranormal activity has been felt. It's claimed that just a few years ago, some workers were taking a lunch break when they decided to get out of the summer heat and sat in the old tunnel to eat their lunch. Shortly after, the men were seen panic-stricken running out of the tunnel. When asked what happened, they said while sitting down and eating their lunch, a Civil War soldier in full uniform came out of the stone wall. He slowly walked past them and down the tunnel without saying a word, before disappearing into thin air. The incident spooked them so much that they refused to ever go near the fort again. Although the fort has never seen a battle, many soldiers trained there during the Civil War, and a few did die there and were buried on the fort grounds. However, eventually, to make room for expansion of the fort, the headstones and bodies were moved to a nearby cemetery down the road. This, many believe, is the reason some of their souls still linger within the building and the grounds. Many who have visited the fort have experienced an eerie shadowy presence, cold spots, being touched by unseen hands, and strange lights and footsteps coming from the tunnel, and most of the paranormal sightings seem to involve Civil War soldiers. Although, because the building was built on a 900-year-old native Indian burial ground, many believe it is sometimes their disturbed souls that are responsible for the activity. Whatever the cause, Fort Wayne has scared its fair share of visitors, and countless paranormal investigations have explored the building and experienced things they cannot explain. So if you're looking for a creepy experience, you really can't go wrong with a visit to Fort Wayne in Detroit. UFO Mystery. On March the 20th, 1966, truck driver Frank Manor saw a pyramid-like object land in a swamp near his farmhouse in Dexter Township, Michigan. When Manor and his teenage son Ron went to investigate, they found the mysterious object flashing red and white lights. 2 police officers were sent to check out the incident, but the object took off into the sky after they arrived. The officers called for help and were eventually joined by 40 other policemen and some local volunteers. While combing through the swamp, several members of the search party saw flash bright lights in the sky. One policeman also saw a bluish UFO fly over his patrol car, followed by 3 other UFOs flying in formation. Over the next few days, reports of UFOs and mysterious flashing lights were recorded across the state. The sightings soon attracted the attention of astronomer and UFO investigator Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was sent to Michigan by the US Air Force to find an explanation. On March the 20th, after 2 days of questioning witnesses, Hynek told reporters at a Detroit conference that the sightings in places like Dexter Township and Ann Arbor were probably misidentifications of swamp gas. Hynek's conclusion caused public outrage. Newspapers reported that a cover-up was taking place, and Congressman Gerald Ford asked the Congress to organize an investigation. It was established that soil samples from the area where the Manons had spotted the UFO showed radiation levels that were higher than normal. These results, which also found high levels of radiation in the water, have never been explained. Since the incident, Michigan has become a hotspot for UFO sightings, many of which can be explained by such things as aircraft, sky lanterns, or more recently drones. However, some still defy explanation, and the incident in Dexter Township in 1966 is one of them. So that's it for this episode of Too Close to Home. We hope you've enjoyed this Saloma, Kiklani, Stephanie, Rolando, and Patian. Also a big thank you to all of our patrons and viewers alike. We wouldn't be able to do these videos without you. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in us talking about your hometown, then check out our Patreon in the link in the description or the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next video.